Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am going to show how the Linux boot process will work. First of all, we know how to use the operating system, whether Windows or Linux, but don't know how the boot process will work. So in this video, I am going to show the real scenario how it works. First, we are going to power on the system, right? This is the power on. We are going to switch on the system first. So after the power on goes to this BIOS chip. Everybody, if anyone observe the BIOS chip where it is in your motherboard? No one. You know the CMOS, right? In between the CMOS, there is beside one chip, single chip, EPROM. This is the BIOS ROM. I will show in the diagram. See here where it is. Yeah, this is the chip. This is the BIOS chip. Here what you seeing here, this is the chip. When you power on, it loads to the BIOS chip. That is, you have seen the legacy UEFI in the boot menu, right? All the information are stored in here. This information, what the information are stored in this CMOS battery. This CMOS battery stored everything what you setting are done in the UEFI settings. Let me show you how the BIOS menus have. Everybody knows how the BIOS menu have. It looked like this. You know, when you enter the BIOS, it looked like this only. This all the contents are stored in the BIOS chip here. This all the settings are stored in the CMOS battery. Once you reset this CMOS battery, everything UEFI BIOS setting will wipe out. Once again, we have to set it manually once again. That's the thing. Okay, we done the one process from power on to the BIOS. Once it's done, it checks all the post. Means it checks the cell phone boot test. Whether his keyboard is working, webcam, hard disk, and the mouse, and the monitor, is the network port is working or not. It checks everything. Once it checks everything, it should transfer to the hard disk. Everybody knows the hard disk. Is whether is the boot is stored in the BIOS? No. The everything is boot is stored in your hard disk. You guys know hard disk. Yeah. This is the hard disk. Here you are going to create C partition, D partition, and the E partition. This is the file structure of the Windows, right? Same as in the Linux, they create a slash like this. This is the one of the partition, not a whole hard disk. This is one of the partition. This is one of the second partition, like SAB to SAB 1, and this is the whole hard disk of what you have, 500 GB or 1 GB. And here what they do, in this drive they install all the kernels, right? What you see in the home, where all the things are stored in the one slash drive. I will show in the live. ls slash c. In this is the one of the partition. This is one of the partition. You store all the bin, etc., home, where, boot, everything is storing here. and here in the second partition the storing slash boot, no sorry, see here you can see boot UEFI. Can you see UEFI? This is one of the partition. The RD is created two partition, one for the your daily usage purposes and one for the self booting purposes. Boot UEFI. Once is done, it enters to the boot directory like this. Here you can see cd slash boot. Here once you powered on, it goes to the post check. After it's moved to the hard disk, and now it enters to the boot. Here choose a boot device. Once you enter, they will show the two or more things. One you can observe in the boot menu. If you install the Windows and same as the Linux, they will show the two, one for the Linux, one for the Windows. You have to select whether Windows or Ubuntu. Like that, they ask for the choose your boot options. Once you boot selected, they went to the GRUB. See here, the process is nothing. When it enters to the boot loader, it enters to the GRUB here. See, this is the GRUB, bootloader GRUB. What will you do GRUB? The GRUB loader sees where it is the bootloader and where it is the kernel. Here what the kernel work here? Kernel is the brain of your system. It communicates your system hardware to the operating system software. If you open a VLC or some browser, it needs some video rendering, right? How it will work? The video rendering required means the software whatever your script was written in the Linux, it sends to the kernel. The kernel asks the GPU or inside graphical hardware give a support to this browser. Like that, kernel gives a communication bridge between the software and hardware. It is like a brain. See, I will show you one thing. It is here. First it enters the bootloader. What I said in here, you can see this is the bootloader. First it enters on the bootloader directory. After it enters to the GRUB. Okay. Once the GRUB is done, the GRUB is connects where is the kernel. As for the where is the kernel, it goes to the here. Actually, this also is placed here only in the bootloader. In the boot directory, it is have in the same directory kernel. The GRUB is selected the kernel. What will do kernel? Kernel have almost 30 to 40 MB of small size data script. Once the kernel got selected, it loads into the RAM. It loads into the RAM. See here. See, once the GRUB is done, bootloaded, it executes the kernel and loads the libraries, which one you need. Once it done, got a kernel script, it sends move to the system MD. This is the first process of the Linux. See here, first is moved to the GRUB. After this GRUB, this in the Linux system, VMWG, this is the kernel. This is the kernel. Once it done, it moves to the Initrd. Initrd. This is your first process of your system for the login and further process. I will show system h top. Where is the PID? Yeah. See, PID 1, this is the first process, Init. You can see here, Init. This is the first process of your Linux. It loads here. In the Init, they have several of services. Your network, display, keyboard, USB, and the printer, everything is stored in the Init. Once the Init is loaded, it runs all the script functions. What I said, keyboard, mouse, everything. Once it's done, it moves to your user menu. User, whether you are using a GUI or whether you're using a terminal, it checks. If you have a desktop environment, it loads the GUI. If you don't have a GUI desktop environment, it directly throw to the terminal. You can do your operations like this. The Linux boot process will continue. I hope you enjoyed this video. In coming up videos, I am going to explain about the file architecture of the Linux. You can see the real scenario, how the Linux file system are structured as happened and why it needs and how is it going on. I hope you will like this video, like and subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.